Good morning, DJ. How are you today?
Good morning, Saida. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. Thank you or welcome to Ask a Bitcoiner 21 questions. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name is Didier Borel. I've been in Bitcoin since 2016. I used to be in finance. I used to be a bond trader, and then that business went down, and I was sort of looking for something else, and I sort of came across Bitcoin. I stumbled across it, and then I initially, like everybody else, I thought it was garbage. And then then I went down the rabbit hole. And since I've sort of abandoned bond trading, which worked well for many years, but then sort of disappeared. And I started a podcast called The Swiss Road to Crypto. And I went to Bitcoin meetups. And that's where we met, at a Bitcoin meetup in Geneva. So there you go. That's who I am.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you were a bond trader. So you've got really cool insight.
Yeah, if you like, what I'm sort of find surprising in Bitcoin or interesting is that, people come to it from different angles, and certain things are difficult for some people to understand, certain things are easy for some people to understand. So if you like, the whole monetary economic aspect of Bitcoin, for me, was like, in 15 minutes, I understood it. That was no problem. What took me time was understanding how it worked technically and why it's solid technically. But I've met people who, for them, the whole monetary aspect and all that was like new and difficult to understand. And I couldn't understand. For them, it was difficult to understand, but simply because they had a different background than I did. So there you go. Yeah.
Well, very good, Mr. Former Bond Trader. So I've got the timer ready to go.
Okay.
I have my box of questions. The box isn't very sexy, but that is okay. It's functional. And we shall start soon.
If I may just jump in, I wanted to tell you, on the one hand, you sent me your questions. I liked them. I thought they were good. And so there are a few things I want to say. One is, I like the fact that 21 questions in 10 minutes. So that basically means about 30 seconds per question, which means I have to try to be concise and not ramble on too much. And number two, I didn't prepare the questions too much. I read them quickly and I had a quick idea. So because I wanted to try to give a relatively spontaneous answer and not a too prepared or studied answer. So there you go. So some questions I might take a little bit more than 30 seconds to answer, and some a bit less, because some of the questions require a longer answer. But yeah, I like the format and I like your questions.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you so much for going the spontaneity route. I find spontaneity is one of the great sort of simple, free pleasures of life. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, you'll see in one of the questions, I have no idea what the answer is. So you'll say, so I didn't go study it. So I'm going to say, I don't know what that means, and you'll see what it is later. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to jinx anything, but I would like to see if we actually get through this in 10 minutes.
Okay.
All right. So I am reading the first question, so I have it. Okay. I'm going to start the timer and go. So after living in Switzerland for many years, could you see yourself returning to the US to live?
No. No, I like it here. I like the quality of life here. I lived in Boston as a child. I was born in New York. I lived in New York and in Boston. And I would say I lived even in a very good environment. Both my parents were professors at Harvard, to say that I lived in a sort of educated and interesting environment. But I didn't really like the United States. So after high school, I moved to Switzerland, and I preferred life here. So no, I don't see myself going back.
Harvard. Woohoo. Next question. How can money grow on trees?
That's probably a reaction to your bouncing off an article I read, which was money grows on trees. And in fact, that was a T-shirt that I saw from a friend of mine who knows Bitcoin very well, whose name is Alex Poltorak. And basically, who you probably know as well. So he had this T-shirt, money grows on trees. Or the idea is that all the transactions, all the Bitcoin transactions in a Bitcoin block get abbreviated and sort of scrunched down to something that's called a Merkle root. And if you unfold a Merkle root, you get the Merkle tree with branches on all of them. If you unfold the abbreviation, of all the transactions. You get a Merkle tree with all the transactions on them. So in Bitcoin, you have a Merkle root, you unfold it, you get a Merkle tree, and at the end of each branch, there is the transaction, the Bitcoin transaction. So if you could say that the money is on the edge of money grows on trees, money is at the edge of the Merkle tree.
And the roots on top. That was weird for me to
they sort of
grasp.
present, often on grass, it's presented sort of upside down, like a pyramid, and the bottom of the tree is at the bottom. Yeah, so it's
okay. How do we scale Bitcoin?
My answer is you don't scale Bitcoin. You go through a second. Certainly don't scale it on the base layer. You scale it on the second layer solution like Lightning and stuff. But Bitcoin is meant to be slow to be secure. Yep. And it's meant to be not too many transactions and slow to be. That increases the security.
Yep. How would you explain a UTXO to a person new to Bitcoin?
So UTXO means unspent transaction output. So my analogy, if you like, of what a UTXO is, my analogy in the analog world, in the classic fiat world, is it's like the serial number on a bill. So if you have like dollar bills or Swiss franc bills or whatever, but there's one big difference that you'll see in a second. If you have dollar bills or Swiss franc bills or whatever, how do you distinguish one bill from another? Well, each bill has a serial number on it. And a UTXO is a little bit like, so how do you distinguish one Bitcoin or one bunch of sats from another? Well, each one has a UTX. That's what a UTXO is. It's a little bit like a serial number. There's one big difference, though. The big difference is in classic fiat money, the serial number never changes. On your bill, throughout the whole life of the bill, the serial number is always the same. Whereas on Bitcoin, it's recreated and it changes at every transaction. Because if you like seeing as Bitcoin is like virtual, there's nothing physical about it. Whereas dollars and you have coins of $5, $1, whatever. If I want to pay you $1.73, I got to give you $1 and then 50-cent coins. Whereas in Bitcoin, you can create a UTXO or you can create like a serial number to pay you exactly $1.73 or 173,000 sats or whatever. So at each transaction you recreate, your wallet creates a new UTXO and it's an unspent transaction output, and that's what you're sending to somebody else. So my analogy is, like I said, a serial number. And of course, it's one of these terrible terms that doesn't make any sense to somebody who's not a computer programmer, like all of Bitcoin. So in fact, what you receive when you receive Bitcoin is you receive a UTXO, meaning you receive an unspent transaction output. In other words, it's unspent because you haven't spent yours yet. It's spent from the previous person. The previous person sent it to you. You received it, and it's a transaction output from the previous transaction. So you received an unspent transaction output, but it's normal that I always say Bitcoin, you will naturally understand how it works if your field of expertise is cryptography or distributed systems. And if it isn't, it's normal you don't understand how it works because you get these terms that don't make any sense.
Yep. And you have to keep using it and figuring out how you did it and what happened. Okay, next question. Where were you in 2009 when the Genesis block was created?
I was in Geneva trading bonds, and it was the most lucrative period for a bond broker of all time ever, after the Lehman collapse.
You're a lucky person. You have good timing in your life.
Yeah, often you can make a lot of money if you're at the right place at the right time, and the right place changes all the time. Like the late 80s, you had to be in warrants on Japanese warrants. And then like the late 90s, where you made a lot of money was on emerging markets debt. It was probably Russian debt. Probably 2003 was emerging markets debt. Where you made a lot of money for the next crisis, financial crisis, was trading distressed bonds in 2009. I happened to be at the right place at the right time. And then afterwards, a lot of Bitcoin people made a lot of money. And there were several peaks, 2013, 17, so on.
Horseshoe. Okay, who is the greatest athlete to come out of Boston?
Yeah, I saw that question. I forgot that. Out of Boston, I don't know, because I can give you some great athletes who played in Boston, but I don't think they grew up in Boston. When I used to live in Boston, that
Good
was
point.
one of the Celtics golden era, and I was a big Larry Bird fan.
Yeah.
So, but he grew up in Indiana, but he was a
Yeah.
great Celtics player. Also, in the earlier period, who was considered like the best hockey player of all time in his time was Bobby Orr of Boston Bruins, but he had
Yeah.
stopped playing like the late 70s or something. So there you go.
The Bitcoin ecosystem is all about FOSS, so free and open source. What's one project that isn't FOSS but still respectable?
Okay. So my answer to that question was I didn't know what FOSS meant. So basically, you answered. So I was going to say I don't know. I don't know what FOSS meant. So free and open source.
Yeah.
So now I'll try to give you a quick answer. A great project that's not FOSS. I'm going to say this, and all the Bitcoiners are going to chop my head off. But Apple makes great computers. Their app store is total extortion.
Yeah.
For a programmer. So certainly it's like they're like Microsoft in the 90s. It's total extortion, but they make great computers.
They do, but you're just trapped. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. If by some miracle Nixon and subsequent presidents had maintained the gold window, would Bitcoin exist today?
Probably not. Probably not. However, there's a very good book that I recommend, which is the Genesis book by Aaron van Wilderum, and he talks about the whole history of Bitcoin before the Genesis block. So there was a great element of cypherpunks and the desire for security and the desire for decentralization, and especially secure anonymity and privacy on the internet. That was very important to them. So that's at least 50%, if not more, of the motivation behind Bitcoin. So I'll still say no. We probably, if we had a harder form of money, but I would say that the hard form of money is probably less than 50% of the motivation behind Bitcoin. So I'll say no. We wouldn't have Bitcoin, but we might anyway. Yeah.
When did you first understand that you wanted to pursue understanding Bitcoin on a deeper level?
2016. I was introduced to it I first heard about it in 2015, 2016, and of course I thought it was I shrugged it off like some stupid thing, and then price went up, and I still was. And then a friend of mine who I respect a lot said, "No, it's not a hack. You got to take this thing. It's not a joke. You got to take this thing seriously." So it's only because it came from him that I figured I can't say it's stupid just because the price is going up fast. I'm going to have to give him a more educated and intelligent answer. So I started educating myself, and I came across Antonopoulos, and then I went down the rabbit hole. And then I went down the rabbit hole, and I really liked it. And I thought, what do you mean? This thing has never been hacked before? What's this? How does this work then? And like I said, it's difficult to understand at first because I like to understand things technically, how they are constructed and how they work. So it's difficult to understand at first, because if you're not a computer programmer, you have to learn new concepts and then see how all the concepts come together. But quickly, I had the idea there's something here, but I don't quite understand it. So I bought some early. I bought some before the 2017 run. And I said, there's something here for sure, buy it, and then we'll figure it out later. And then, early 2017, I started. Sorry.
We can chill now. No
Sorry
time
about that.
pressure.
I thought I was within 30 seconds per question, but I can see that's not the case. Okay. So it's 2017. Shall we continue with the questions, or are we finished now?
No. Of course, we continue with the questions.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Okay. Shall I proceed to the next one?
Yeah. So my question, that's my answer. My answer was late 2016, early 2017. I knew I wanted to get into it in more deep level.
Yep. What is something you do every day?
I forgot that. Yeah, I saw that question. Well, just give you the stupid answer, brush my teeth. But the things I do, not necessarily every day, but I try to, I look at my email, stuff like that, but probably on a more intelligent level, a bit of sports every day, a bit of educating, not necessarily every day, but I mean 3, 4, 5 times a week. Right now I'm doing a class on Brilliant, on how the DNA works.
Oh, wow. Um, okay, so you've recently celebrated a milestone, 100 podcast episodes. What are the top 3 things you've learned after doing 100 episodes?
Yes, that was a good. Uh, yeah, I saw you. I wrote an article about that as well. So I'll try to be quick because now I've already gone over the 10 minutes. But uh, preparation, you got to prepare your questions. But, as a podcaster, you always want to have a great interview and a great guest. And sometimes you have great guests who are boring. Sometimes you have people who you didn't think were going to be good who are very good. So of course you try to reduce your level of unexpectedness by preparing things and knowing where you want to go with the podcast, knowing what you want to get out of the person, knowing the questions you want to. That's all preparation. That can all be done, but the extra sort of special thing that you learn is that you can't prepare it. I always say there's sort of a chemistry of the moment that can't be prepared. And the analogy I often give is like if you are running a theater. You see the same play in your theater performed by the same actors every night. And just some days it's better than others because there's more electricity, there's more chemistry, the timing's better. So there's a part that you can't predict. So I'd say that's the most important one. The other 2 things are know what it is you want to get out of the podcast. And I'm not very good at reacting naturally. In other words, I think I heard Oprah Winfrey once say, I'm not good at interviews, but I'm great at listening. So she's great at listening to people and soliciting something out of them. And I don't think I'm good at that. So I got to prepare, meaning you sort of got to know your weaknesses and try to work around them. So those are the top 3 things I'd say I learned. Yeah.
One of my weaknesses is going off on tangents. So this exercise is good for me. And when you mentioned that you were a bond trader, I had a flood of questions come to mind. And I'm like, nope, stick to the script. Like I felt that I had to hold back. Okay, next question. Keynesian or Austrian School of Economics?
Well, the initial reaction is Austrian, but in fact, I'll defend Keynes because it's a good book written by, I just read the resume, I didn't read the book, written by a journalist that basically says Keynes got shafted by history because in fact what he stands for and what he thought is not at all the way he's represented in history. He's represented in history because Franklin D. Roosevelt, there was a depression and he said, okay, let's do Keynesian now. Basically, the government has to come in and spend in place of the private sector. So it means let's just print a lot of money and spend it to stimulate the economy. That's how he was sort of interpreted by history. But in fact, if you look at what he wrote and read and so on, that's not at all, that's like 2% of his outlook on economic outlook. So I would say, of course, Austrian, because I prefer Austrian sort of thing of the value is how much value something is how much something has value to somebody and they're willing to pay. And I sort of see things first on a micro level, then on a macro level. But to defend Keynes, this book that was written will tell you that he's represented in history completely differently than what he really stood for.
If you remember the name of the book, please send it to me so I can add it to the notes and I can order it.
Okay.
Thank you. How do you measure decentralization?
Good question. That's a very good Bitcoin question. And the answer is, how hard is it to change the rules? If it's very difficult to change the rules, it's very decentralized. The consensus rules. So here it's the consensus rules. Consensus of how you determine whether the state of the database, the state of the ledger has been updated or not. What do you need to do to change the state of the ledger? Because Bitcoin is just a database. So how difficult is it to change the rules? You could say that a lot of the other sort of factors that people look at, criteria that people look at can be gamed, like how many nodes there are or things like that. That can be gamed. So if you want to change the rules, is it impossible? Yes or no? That's the factor I look at.
Which podcast guest has challenged your understanding of Bitcoin the most?
I wouldn't say challenged, but instructed me a lot is I like Alex Poltorak because I've had him on many times, and I think he knows
Yeah.
Bitcoin extraordinarily well, and I like his outlook and intellectual honesty and objectivity, which is also what I like in Andreas Antonopoulos. So I wouldn't say he's challenged me, but he's well, sometimes he challenged me, but he's taught me a lot.
Yeah. Is Lightning broken?
Uh, I don't know. I don't use it that much. The last time I used it was about 2 days ago to make about $25 worth of payments on 2 payments. I use it for micro payments, like less than $1, like very often on the internet, on different sites, like Stacker News and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what 2 points. There are some people who don't want to say this in public because they don't want to attract a lot of controversy. Is they'll tell you that Lightning Network is not a good technical solution. So you could say it's broken or not quite broken yet. Other people don't want to say that. So I suppose I don't know is the answer. Yeah. But what I learned recently, just because now we're over the 10 minutes anyway.
Yeah, okay, good.
That in fact, what I didn't know, but I learned when I read Antonopoulos' book, Mastering Lightning Network, is in fact, when you had Bitcoin come out, you had Satoshi who offered one implementation of it from a software point of view, which was Bitcoin Core. But the Lightning Network was written, it was in fact as a white paper written by Taj Dirya and Andrew Poon. So it was a white paper, but they never offered a specific, like a Bitcoin Core, specific software implementation of it. So you have several different implementations of it, async and the other one, Blockstream and so on. So you can say, therefore, it's not constructed as well as a harmonious way. So is it broken? Yeah, maybe. It's 3 different things trying to fit together, type of thing.
Yeah. What's your all-time favorite movie?
Yeah. There are many that I like. So if I have to choose one, there's one that I thought I'll choose like 2. But one, I'll say they're both relatively recent, came out in the last, 10, 15 years. One is The Hereafter by the director was Clint Eastwood. And I think as a director, he was even better than as an actor. And The Hereafter is a story it's 3 different stories, and it shows you how your view of life changes when you've had a near-death experience. That's a little bit the underlying theme. I thought that was very good, The Hereafter by Clint Eastwood. Another one I liked very much was Wasteland, which was an artist who, if you think art is worth, it's just nothing, is useless. It's an artist, a Brazilian photographer, in fact, who goes to wastelands, who goes to garbage dumps, and he photographs people who work in the garbage dumps in Brazil. He's Brazilian himself. And in fact, he makes beautiful art with what they're doing, but he uses it to make these people who work in the garbage dumps, he rebuilds their self-esteem with it. He makes them see that what they're doing is beautiful. And I thought that was a great movie too. But I love movies. I don't know, I could give you 100 others, but I can't think of them right now. I mean, The Godfather was there. Godfather was great, or whatever.
The Godfather was our Christmas movie. My mom loves The Godfather. Every Christmas we would watch The Godfather.
I remember, like, I don't know, last winter or something, I came home Sunday night and I turned on the television at 11 o'clock and I saw The Godfather that I'd already seen like 5 times. And there's this one scene where it's like in 1970s in New York, where it's Al Pacino meeting with the boss of another, next mafia group, and he's about to kill him. And you're watching this thing like 40 years after it came out, and you say to yourself, I'm sure the atmosphere in that restaurant at that evening between those 2 guys was exactly like that. And you're like, wow, what a masterpiece of directing to do that.
Yep. What was it like to use Bitcoin? Actually, I don't know if this is apropos because you said that, okay, I'll read it anyway, sorry. What was it like to use Bitcoin before BIP 39 was implemented? So with the mnemonic seed phrase.
I don't know, because I never used it before then.
Yeah.
So, but people say using Lightning Network now is a little bit like using Bitcoin in the early days. It's not perfect. So the answer is I don't know, because I never used it before.
Okay. How has Bitcoin influenced other areas of your life?
I didn't see that. That's an interesting question. I don't know. How is it interesting? I don't know. I'll say it's, well, I always like new inventions. And so this is a new invention that solved the Byzantine generals problem. I'll say it's a very, very good example of, I know very smart people who reject Bitcoin. And it makes me think of a very great statement by the physicist Planck, from the Planck's constant. And he said, an old idea, a new technology or a new idea doesn't win out because you convince the old school. Doesn't win out because you convince people of the old school that the new school is better. It wins out because the people of the old school die, and the new people just and the new people, and everybody who's living believes in the new school or the new way of thought. So if you like, I see that with Bitcoin, with some people who I know who I think are smart and open to very good in business and everything, and they just reject it out of stupidity because they're uncomfortable with tech, and it must be a scam because it looks so much like all the other scams I've ever seen, so it must be a scam. And that's a cognitive bias to think that. Of course, it's true 9 times out of 10. It looks like the 10 other examples I already saw, so it must be the same one, which 9 times out of 10, that's correct. But that's also a cognitive bias, and they don't want to see that. They're just stuck with the idea that it resembles the other scam, so it must be a scam.
Yep.
So I'll say it made me see that well in other people.
Yeah, a truth teller. How does the Howey test, does the Howey test need to be updated to adapt to the crypto industry?
Probably, yeah. Well, the question is good, but the question is, well, not good. I don't want to criticize, because the Howey test was made for securities, and the crypto industry doesn't give a shit. So the Howey test is, well, it's not the Howey test was made by legal people, and crypto industry was made by programmers who wanted to build something that they could share in a decentralized network. So, so I don't think the Howey test is a good criteria to apply it, but people are going to apply it because they want a legal framework. So if you just take the 5 criteria, the Howey test, I think it's investment of money. So yeah, you could say Ethereum is money or something. It needs to profit, you need the work of others. And that's where I don't agree. Because you and me could just do a smart contract together where every time you smile, I give you half an ether, and every time you like my answer, you give me back half an ether. And we just have a smart contract running between the two of us. Okay, now you need sort of stakers to validate it. But so I'm not really convinced there's necessarily a need of an idea of profit, nor the need of others, especially when it used to be proof of work or others. So I suppose, yeah, but it's a question for lawyers, and so I don't like lawyers.
Yeah.
I think.
So how does one achieve mastery?
I like that, because you also looked at the answer is you achieve mastery, because I wrote an article about that. You achieve mastery by a lot of hard work, but you only really achieve mastery if you like what it is you're working on or studying. I'll give you an example. Like I said, both my parents were doctors. I thought, I might be interested in medicine. I hated biology in school. I thought, okay, let's study this. It looks close to what my parents do. Let's do it. I went to biology, and I hated learning about cells and mitochondria and all that. But I got an A on my exam of biology because my mother helped me. So I got an A. So you might think I'm good, but I have 0 mastery in biology. And as soon as I got the A, I never looked to open a book again, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
So you get mastery by hard work, but you have to like it too, whatever the subject is.
Yep. And last official question, is Ethereum a security?
Ah, uh, uh, I'm not qualified to answer the question. I would have to go back and take the criteria, and then you take a legal definition. But yeah, like I said, lawyers and computer programmers can clash basically. So I don't know.
Yes. Well, DJ, so actually one mini question with your name. Do people in your close circle call you DDA or Didier? Like, is it an Anglophone accent or more of a Francophone accent?
Francophone, français, Didier, because everybody I know
Français.
is more or less bilingual, French or English, so they end up calling me Didier. But
Mm,
Americans can't say that. When I lived in America, they said it Didi because Didier was too difficult for them.
yeah,
And it was
Didi.
Didi. And then it was a long explanation where the name came from. And then I said, it's a French name. They said, so you're French. And I said, no. You're Swiss. So you speak Swedish. No.
Yeah. On the phone, I've gotten Sweden a lot. Where do you live? Switzerland. Sweden, Switzerland, Sweden. And I was shocked that it's so complicated to differentiate between Switzerland and Sweden.
Because they don't, I'm sure if you give them a map, they don't know where either one of them is. I'm sure. If they say Sweden, you mean, I mean, it means they don't know where either one of them is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll send you back to Jay Leno on YouTube asking people simple questions and they get ridiculous.
I miss him. I used to love watching his show. Well, Didier, thank you so much for answering 21 questions. And before we close out, can you remind people where they can find you on social media and where they can listen to your podcast?
Okay, my podcast is called The Swiss Road to Crypto, but I have to say I'm sort of putting it aside now. I haven't done anything recently. I also have a Substack also called The Swiss Road to Crypto. So you can either find me on LinkedIn under Didier Borel. You can go to Substack and look up a Substack called The Swiss Road to Crypto. And now I write even more, mostly on things not related to crypto. But I have written about crypto in the past. And there you go.
Thank you so much, Didier. Bye.
Bye-bye. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.